Hi, welcome back to our Road to Steam series, a series in which we'll be creating a game from scratch. Previously on our HEUSS Dev Diaries, we overhauled our original UI concept to fix some unforeseen issues. In today's episode, we'll implement our new hilt into the game. Interested to follow the progress of our game? Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get all the latest development updates every week. The merciless winter has finally come to our doorstep, bringing with it a bunch of holidays. Because of that, we'll be taking a month-long break to enjoy the festivities. However, merrymaking won't be the only thing we will do. We plan to clean the game up and build strong foundations for what's to come. Here are some hints on what we'll be attacking next when we come back. Happy holidays to all of you, and we'll see you with more HEUSS in January 2020. Now, let's get back to the show. With the main pieces of our hilt ready to go, it's finally time to implement its final version inside Unity. We have a lot of details to cover, so strap in, because we're moving into high gear. Now that our hilt is fully divided into multiple parts, the first thing we need to do is rebuild its overall shape in our scene. To do this, we use a transparent version of our combat UI as a blueprint. When it's scaled and placed appropriately, we can start to fill it with our different pieces. With our basic pieces placed, we can now attack a more trickier aspect of our UI. Previously with our old hilt design, we had a blue bar to identify enemies that were in range. To translate this concept to our new model, we'll need to implement it in a slightly different way. What we'll do is create two additional chains. One that's blurred out, and another that's almost completely white. Our goal with these two images is to simulate a glowing chain. By combining them, we can get a pretty convincing effect. But that's only one side of the equation. To complete its implementation, we'll need to create a multi-layered mask setup. These masks will help us hide parts of the chain that we don't want to see. The first layer limits the normal and glowing chain to one half of the screen. This allows us to move them without having any crossover on the other side of our UI. To finalize the illusion, we also use another mask to hide parts of the glowing chain. By forcing this mask to follow the enemy tracker, we can simulate the moving blue bar of our previous hilt. The only thing left to do is to replicate everything we've just done to the other side. With this, our basic setup is complete. Now that we have a solid foundation, it's time to implement the basic functionalities of our hilt. This means integrating all the interactions our previous hilt had. Things like following the player, tracking enemies and updating hit points. All of this plus a healthy dose of debugging.
Fäste mig
Before tackling our advanced interactions, we need to light up our hilt with some colors. To accomplish this, we'll add multiple glowing shaders to specific parts of our combat UI. These lights will be used to identify critical information on the hilt, as well as making it more visually striking and less monotone during gameplay. We're now in the final stretch of our implementation. What we'll do next is add a bunch of little interactions to our hilt which will enhance its visual feedback. The first batch centers around our group of gears. Each of them have unique interactions depending on what's happening during gameplay. The cogs on our side skulls spin when enemies enter the hilt's range. Our middle gears turn whenever our chains move from left to right. This is done to reinforce the illusion of a hidden mechanism behind our combat UI. For our last one, we crank up the speed of our special wheel every time the player holds down the special moves key. These special moves are yet to be implemented, but nonetheless, we still decided to create the UI visuals to see how it would all fit with the rest of the hilt. Next on the list is what happens when the player gets hurt. This sequence is divided into 3 interactions. The front skull shaking from the impact, the sword and the eyes lighting up in a glowing red, and the player's hit points number quickly expanding and shrinking. With this done, let's backtrack a bit and return to our special meter. We'll add a little more punch to our spinning wheel by lighting up the thunder scar under the hilt every time it's activated. This scar represents the amount of resources available for special moves, but like we said earlier, it's a feature we'll tackle in the near future. To seal the deal, we'll make 3 final additions. The first one is to expand and shrink our enemy trackers every time an enemy gets hit and survives. It will increase the juiciness and snappiness of our player attacks. The second one is to light up the cogs of our side skulls when an enemy enters the hilt's range. This is basically the same treatment as the one we did for our special wheel. Finally, to further distinguish our combat UI from the environment, we'll use Krita to create drop shadows for each pieces of our hilt. We'll place them under their respective counterparts inside Unity to create a unified shadow. With this, let's see how it all comes together in action. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you next week with a new episode of our Road to Steam series.
Skulle